The state capture inquiry has found that former President Jacob Zuma aided the Gupta family in capturing power utility Eskom. The fourth part of the inquiry's report, which deals with Eskom, National Treasury, EOH Holdings and a Free State asbestos project, was handed over to President Cyril Ramaphosa by the inquiry's secretary on Friday morning. Benedicta Van Minnen from the Standing Committee on Public Accounts joins me now to further discuss this. Thank you so much for your time, Benedicta. We do appreciate it. We had a discussion last week about the issues at Eskom, and it just seems as though the following part of the state capture report just further highlights the many issues and the repercussions of state capture that we are seeing at Eskom and the power utility. Maybe just speak to us what your thoughts are regarding the part around Eskom, where it just seems as though certain deals and certain contracts were given to the Guptas.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes, I do find it extremely ironic, given the conversation we had exactly this time last week, because, you know, this section of the Zondo report speaks very clearly to the enormous state capture that we saw at Eskom. At least 14.7 billion rand has essentially been embezzled through the state capture with then President Zuma and the sort of very much the thug state that he was trying to run, and his sidekicks, the Guptas. So we saw good people at Eskom replaced, and it states this in the report, by people who would be more amenable to the various factors within the ANC, the Guptas, and of course the Zuma syndicate, in order to continue with state capture, in order to hollow Eskom out. And that has resulted in what we have today. And what's particularly ironic is that, you know, just over a week ago, Ms. Mavuso told this to Scopa, and of course the ANC members of Scopa didn't want to hear it. And here we have the proof right in front of us.
Certainly. I want us to move into parts of the newly released report of state capture that speaks about how certain ministers and certain board members were moved around and shuffled around to allow for certain contracts to be awarded to the Gupta family and close associates. And this, of course, became highly problematic because during the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, where you had various individuals testifying and being asked, you know, why was this board, for example, put in place, where you had the former Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown being asked, why were people put in the position of board members when they had no experience when it came to any SOE or a power utility? And it just seems as though there was a lack of understanding as to how serious those decisions were at the time and how this is now costing the country.
Well, I think it's very clear that people were put in place not for their ability and skills at running Eskom or the SOEs involved, but essentially, as the report states, in order to be amenable to allowing state capture to take place and to allow the hollowing out of SOEs. Now, we've seen this not only in Eskom, we've seen it in a number of SOEs, and certainly at Scopa. It's something that we have questioned enormously. Issues, you know, like Eskom, Alex Corps, PRASA, SAA, all of these things have come up numerous times. Questions have been asked. Unfortunately, the ruling party, the ANC, has always just bulldozed over it, which is why it is so important that we continue with our oversight. And it is also important that we get our reports in front of Parliament, which currently are being blocked, mainly by the ANC sitting in the committees.
What's interesting is that part of the report speaks about the late chairman of Eskom board that says, I learned that the name is corruption, but the game is procurement. And that was quite profound because it seemed as though that corruption was alive and thriving in our state-owned entities, but it was all about making sure that the right individuals were in place to allow them to get these tenders and to be able to procure these deals. I want to ask you, Benedicta, with regards to this new task team that has now been set up to further look at this new report released by the State Capture Inquiry looking into Eskom. Many would say that the writing was on the wall and we've all known for a very long time what has been actually happening at Eskom, and why do we need to wait for a report to tell us what was actually going on? Because we can see how Eskom is bankrupt at this stage and it's unable to fulfill a lot of its projects and keep our lights on because of the corruption that has been happening at Eskom for some time now. As Scopa, are you concerned that we're waiting for the very last minute for things to happen, or do you think that this is a step in the right direction that will also guide the National Prosecuting Authority to investigate further?
Well, certainly Scopa in this term, the sixth Parliament, has been very focused on Eskom. We did our first oversight in August 2019, and then again, of course, last week. We've had many interactions with Eskom, and certainly we have seen progress with the current board and CEO when it comes to dealing with consequence management. It's something that has been raised. It was raised at the meeting last week where I think ENCA was present. So we will certainly be focusing very heavily on it going forward. Scopa is meeting this week on other issues, but I'm sure that we will take the time to discuss what has come out of this so that we can be sure to really keep an eye on the Eskom inquiry that they are putting together, as well, obviously, as our engagements with the SIU and our engagements with the National Prosecuting Authority. So it's something we will definitely be following, and I personally will really be focusing on in the next few months going forward.
Certainly. Well, we hope something comes out of this, and we do hope that the NPA further investigates as recommended in the state capture report. Thank you so much for your time and always making yourself available. We do appreciate it. That was Benedicta Van Minnen, who is part of Scopa.